Hello, here we go. That's what we're hearing on the other side. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are at the end of May, the end for our children, the last week of school. Crazy. I can't believe they're going to be out and about, summer camps and everything, right?
Oh, I know. Everybody's favorite time of year.
I love summer, actually. But they are getting out really early, and going back really early. But anyways, hopefully you all have some great plans for your summer vacation. We'll be back here. We'll always be here talking about summer and talking about the market. But today is really exciting. We have a special guest. He's been on before, but he's going to join us from Destin, and we're going to talk the market. Andrew Cady, he's the epic mortgage guy at Fairway. We're excited to have him on. He always has a lot to say and a lot of information. So, hopefully you all are on here, or if you're not on here watching live, please still answer questions. He'll answer them or ask questions. He'll answer them for you. But if you are on here live, please ask questions. He's got a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. He'll help you out with anything from mortgages to the market he's a lender, but we'll answer the real estate questions, but he's really good at what he does. So we'll have him on in a moment. I didn't introduce myself, but you all know me, Kristen Rabell.
And I'm Rebecca Johnson.
All right. What do you want to do, Rebecca?
We're going to do the Monday market moment.
Sweet.
All right, so let's take a quick look at what's happening in North Central Florida before we bring on our special guest. So if you are in the Gainesville area, remember this is May 1st through May 23rd. Just had to check the date. It is 127 active residential units still on the market. 248 pending properties since March 1st, and 197 closed properties. Jumping down to the Tampa Hillsborough area, you've got 524 properties that have been on the market since May 1st or have come on, 885 pending, 706 closed. Ooh, reading is hard. And let's see, which all these numbers look on the lower side to me, to be honest.
Still lower, right?
Right. But still moving, so that's good news. Over in Ocala, Marion, you've got 293 active on the market since May 1st, with 440 pending and 426 closed so far. I think we'll see kind of a mad rush to close by Friday, so it'll be interesting to see what the numbers are the first week of June. Once everybody's kind of had that push, because I always feel like the long weekends, everybody wants to close.
Right.
All right.
I'd love to see the differences between April and May.
And then over in St. Augustine, you have 24. Now, remember, in the St. Augustine area, we're only looking at a very small section, the beaches area, and this one is a year-round collective for the active.
So January 1st.
January 1st of the day. So 24 active that are still on the market, 12 pended, and 12 closed.
For May.
For May.
Yeah. All right. Well, there are the numbers. We can see still low inventory, but things are still pending and closing. The closest one is Ocala. And actually, this morning we were talking with an agent, and he was seeing that the pending and closed were right around the same number. So there you go. It's, and he was just looking at the weekend. So very close to the numbers there as well in Ocala, Marion County. So, there we go. We'll show in about 2 weeks, we'll show May versus April and see what's happening. But let's bring on Andrew. He's here. The epic mortgage guy.
There he is.
With that flag in the background. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. All right, let's get the show on the road. We have a lot to talk about, don't we?
Yes, we do. There's a lot going on in housing.
Well, we'll give it to you because we know you have. We always watch you on Facebook and follow your posts, and you've got so much information and so a wealth of knowledge, and so we love reading everything, sharing it, and listening to you talk. So, what are you seeing in the market right now?
Yeah, so market analytics is something that it's like my passion. I work in the mortgage industry, but what makes me good at what I do is diving into the markets. And what I've found in looking at our markets, if you read the news headlines and you start looking at them, I was recently going back and I found a news article from January 14 through January 22, every single year of the news predicting that we're in a housing bubble and that housing prices are going to collapse.
Yeah.
And news is always looking for catchy headlines, but honestly, that's what, if you're in the real estate business or mortgage business or title business, that's what our consumers, that's what our clients are reading. Right. And that's what I think is putting a lot of pause in people's minds, when the reality of it is we're not in a bubble for housing. We're in an inventory crisis. I wouldn't even call it a shortage at this point. We're in like crisis mode for inventory. Case in point, today, the numbers were released for home or housing vacancies. This measures the total number of homes in America that are currently vacant, whether they're up for sale or not, but vacant homes. They've been running this measurement since 1956 through today. And since 1956 to today, we are at the absolute lowest housing vacancy we've seen in recorded history, with 0.8% of homes currently vacant. And that's going to be indicative of what we're dealing with in the housing market. Lending standards have remained very, very strong. I was looking at a data chart that showed the number or the dollar amount of mortgages written on a year over year basis to home buyers that had a credit score lower than 620. In 2006, there was just about 400 billion with a B of mortgages given to people that had an under 620 credit score. Wow. 2009 through 2022, there has been less than $100 million or $100 billion written every single year. The number of high-risk mortgages have fallen off by 75%, and they haven't returned. Lending standards today are stronger than they've been in even the past 10 years. They've tightened up even over the past couple of years. And so I believe what we're seeing in the market right now, because a lot of people are starting to see less offers on properties. You're starting to see inventory sitting on the market a few days longer. And I would say that a lot of that right now is two things. Number one, it's buyer fatigue. I was talking to Kristen just before the show started, and I had one buyer that put offers on 23 different properties before they finally threw their hands in the air and said, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not shopping anymore.
Right. And my question was, they're okay with knowing that the prices are going higher, and we started talking about rates and how the rates are higher and they could be higher when they decide to go back. Now we can talk about that again later, but yeah.
I desperately tried to keep them on board and, told them everything, but they're just burned out.
Yeah, fatigue.
The other thing you're starting to see is inventory is ticking up. Inventory is starting to come in a really nice cycle forward. We went from just about 1 million homes listed for sale in America at the end of February to just about 1.3 million homes listed at the end of April. But if you look at that, people say, well, there's more inventory, the housing market's slowing. But if you actually look at the chart, and I can put it in the comments on this video when we're done with this, that's indicative of every single spring market. The uptrend we're seeing right now in inventory is simply more homes coming to the market. And so I believe part of what you're seeing with less offers on properties is there's more availability to properties, being that it's a spring market. So, you don't have these 800 buyers corralling over 60 homes. They're seeing 100 homes now. And so the number of offers being placed on each individual home could be decreased a bit because there's a bit more inventory coming to market right now.
I agree with that, because I'm seeing our agents at our office and ourselves bringing on more. We've got more listings than we did a couple months ago when we were all feeling this panic all around, at least our area in Gainesville, talking with other agents, talking with our own. But then also you're seeing them come on the market more. And what I'm hearing from others, when I do have a listing come on, I will hear the buyers say, or the buyer's agent say, hey, I'm going to come show your house. And then I don't get the response back because they're not just showing that one house, they're showing a list of homes. And we didn't see agents showing a list of homes for a good year and a half. They were showing one at a time. Now they're showing 5 to 6, which going back to a little more normality in that sense,
Yeah, and I think that's good. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to jump in and say, so what are you telling people? Because I have so many people that are like, oh, the housing market, the prices are going to crash. They're going to crash. And I'm like, how can they crash if there's nothing for people to buy?
Yeah, and you kind of said it earlier, the media. I mean, I can tell you 4 or 5 articles a day seem to pop up with the word the bubble. The bubble is going to pop. And yes, it's kind of a clickbait because then when you read it, there's nothing about a bubble, because it's someone who really knows, but they're seeing the article and they're not necessarily reading it, right? So they're saying, there's this bubble. Yeah. So what are your predictions? What are your thoughts?
It's a sentiment that's being put out there that the housing market's overinflated. Now, granted, the appreciation we saw last year, that's unprecedented.
Yeah.
Anyone who is buying a home today expecting that to continue is out of their mind. What a normal level of appreciation is 3 to 5% per year, and that's a great level of appreciation. And I believe that's where we're heading. But this issue of inventory shortage started in 2010. A normal amount of homes being built in America on an annual basis. The median age of a first-time home buyer is 33 years old. And so you have to look at the number of people turning 33 years old and how many new households are being formed. And so when you start to look at these numbers, the median of what we should be building in this country for builders to build new construction homes is sitting at right about 1.5 million homes a year. Now, in 2004, 5, and 6, we were building about 2 million homes a year, which is where we saw the bubble we saw.
Right.
In 2009, 2010, we dropped down to building about 450,000 homes in America. And just 2020 was the first year that we actually built back to the average level we should be. So we have a decade-long problem that's been in the making of builders underbuilding homes. 2010 to 2020, builders built about 30% of the homes they built the previous decade.
So you're saying right now they're catching up to the norm, that 1.5 million that we need a year.
Yeah. So this year's
there's a supply chain
about
right. I was
issue.
going to say it's really difficult to build because things are constantly in a shortage and they're having to make all these,
And we were talking about this
changes.
before. You're saying where you are right now in Destin, Florida, it's taking 36 months to finish a home. Now you're probably talking about these larger homes. You're in an area that has a lot more regulations, probably near the coast and everything. Gainesville has regulations, but not like coastline. So our normal spec builders, not the big $1 million mansions, the normal spec builders went from 4 months to about 8 to 9, sometimes 12 months to build one home. So we're seeing the major supply chain. So I don't think, are you saying that we're catching up or we're caught up?
So that's where you have to dive a little deeper into the data. So, the data suggests that if the median amount of homes being built is 1.5 million, that's what we need. Well, last month we had housing starts. This is new construction starts by builders of 1.7 million. And so you say we're gaining 200,000 homes. Well, not necessarily. So, and this is on a year over year basis. So we're up, on a year over year basis, about 1.7 million homes. Well, you also have to take into account that about 100,000 homes per year are destroyed either through end of life or through teardowns and replacements, or they simply are destroyed in a natural disaster. So America loses about 100,000 homes a year. So that takes us with only about gaining 100,000 homes on it. But what you actually have to look at because of the supply chain shortage is not just the new housing starts, but the new housing completions.
Yeah.
Because just because they start building doesn't mean they're completing it. So if you actually look at new housing completions, there was only 1.3 million homes completed in the last year, 200,000 short of where we need to be. And if you take away the 100,000 homes that are destroyed in that, we're actually today of completed homes availability is about 300,000 homes less available than we were last year.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So,
I didn't think about it. I didn't think about the not completing them, but that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So new housing starts is what is going to, fix this in the future. So the new housing starts are on the right path. But according to Fannie Mae, Fannie Mae put out a study at the end of first quarter that said we are around 3.8 million homes short for the current demand in America.
Right.
Now, if you figure that we're catching up at a rate over the next couple of years with the supply chain freeing up, catching up at a rate of 200,000 homes a year, builders are going to be building for decades to come if they don't get to a point of overbuilding. And that's where we could see a bubble, is because builders are going to continue to build more and more and more. And where I would start to get concerned is when we see over 2 million homes built in a year for 2 years in a row.
Okay.
I know we have to take a break, but I want to definitely come back and talk about builders building neighborhoods now for investment firms to turn everybody into a renter nation. But I know we have to take a break, so we can do that afterwards.
All right. We'll see you in a minute or less.
A unique pocket of the Gainesville residential community is the Duck Pond area, located in northeast Gainesville, close in proximity to the bustling downtown area. Named for the retention pond that houses ducks and other water birds, the neighborhood is known as the Historical District of Gainesville. It displays many different types of residential architecture ranging from Victorian, Mediterranean, colonial, cottage style, and farmhouses. The Thomas Center and gardens within the Duck Pond neighborhood serve as a community cultural haven for art galleries, event space, history exhibits, and more. Not only is the Duck Pond a historic pillar in the Gainesville community, but it was also home to rock and roll legend Tom Petty. A stroll through the Duck Pond will make you feel as though you have stepped back in history to the late 1800s. Check out buysellrebell.com to find your Duck Pond home. Hey there, welcome back. We know there's some questions. Kristen's trying to
I'm going to try to get on here. We'll get some questions.
But Andrew's all excited. So,
what you said about investors buying homes, I am so passionate about. Get ready for some fire on it.
All right, lay it on us.
We saw it first in your area of Jacksonville, where you're from and where you work.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah. So what was that neighborhood called? You always remember the name of it. Okay.
I can't remember. Anyway,
an entire neighborhood based off that. So let's do that. Let's get into
talk about that. And then I have another question about and you might not see this on the loan side, but I feel like as a realtor, people are starting to settle for smaller homes. Not everybody's getting their own bedroom anymore. They're starting to share, but that has more to do with the economy and affordability. But anyways, investors first, regular people second.
Yes, investors. So, following the crash in 2008, homes, single-family residence, were not considered an asset class by hedge funds.
Okay.
This only started popping up a couple of years ago, where they began to see single-family homes as an investable asset. And it's always been the multifamily, the 300-unit apartment complex. That's an asset class to a hedge fund. Single-family is the new craze, and here's the problem you run into it. A most recent study that was done showed 1 out of every 7 single-family homes in America is now owned by a corporation.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't break down how many of those are owned by, me owning that property, but putting it in an LLC. But 1 in 7 are corporation owned. And the problem you're running into with these massive hedge funds, like there was a neighborhood down in Tampa, I believe it was either D.R. Horton or Lennar, built an entire neighborhood and sold the entire neighborhood to one hedge fund. The problem you have with that is that home very, very likely will never return to the MLS. That home is gone. It's off the market. It's taken. And here's why. Is a hedge fund's going to build up. I was looking at like Goldman Sachs owns about 90,000 single family homes right now. Now let's forget the fact that they are leveraged $200 to every $1 in assets. Let's just set that aside, that they're pending a crash again. But let's say all these homes that they own, and let's say Goldman Sachs goes belly up and their investment portfolio needs to be offloaded. That will not be listed individually, one home at a time in an MLS. Another hedge fund will come in and buy their pool. And so the homes you're seeing being snatched up by these big investment firms and these massive hedge funds, those are likely homes that are going to be permanent rental properties for the entirety of that property. And so this isn't really a temporary problem. This is going to be a permanent thing. And you're dead right when you're talking about people starting to look at lower priced houses. But my question to that is lower priced houses compared against what?
So I want to speak on a couple of things.
You were saying smaller houses.
Smaller, not necessarily lower price. But so yes, D.R. Horton, what scares me about that is so they did sell the whole neighborhood. And so, and D.R. Horton is now doing this in our area. They're now building and holding. And that's what's so scary to me is that now the builders are seeing it because that company that bought it, it went up 130% in value from what they bought it as soon as it became a rental investment. So D.R. Horton's sitting here going, wow, I'm selling a house. I'm getting 10 to 30 grand depending on what they're selling. He goes, instead, I don't know. Sorry, I said he. It might be I don't know who runs D.R. Horton. Anyways, they probably looked at those numbers and were like, whoa,
We wanna
holy
make those
crap.
that money.
We can, our stuff is 130% more valuable as soon as it closes and becomes a rental community. So now in Gainesville specifically, I'm sure it's happening everywhere, they are building a massive community. And people keep asking me about it. I said, well, that's D.R. Horton's. They're building it to hold it. And they're going to now manage their own rental properties. And I think you're going to see them all go that way.
Now,
Really
granted,
scary.
everybody needs a home. This is the only way I could think. Of course, as a real estate agent, we want to be able to sell them. But there are going to be people who just want to rent. And
Well,
I
watch
think
the paper. They're
and
setting
I
us up to
think
be a renter
I was
nation.
going to say they're setting us up with all of the media because a lot of things that I'm reading are actually now, and they're geared towards anyone under the millennial, so whatever you want to call the rest of them. But they're all setting us up with the mindset of you don't want to buy.
Owning a home
Owning
is
home.
hard.
It's not even hard. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of
which
work.
Same thing, I guess you could
can't
say.
do this. Yeah.
So let's, before we go, do you have another? Because
Other than the fact
there's some
that,
questions that we want to get to for him.
Just that I think people are, because of the price points and the economic uncertainty, it used to be, I want a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, so everybody has their own bedroom. I'm like, now they're buying that 3-2, and 2 kids are sharing a room, and everybody's fine. And I
or
think
the
it's more-
families are coming together kind of like
we've seen a lot
back in
more
the
of that.
day, and
Yeah.
they're bringing back
Multi-generational.
the multi-generational families. And granted, it could be because of our population now as well as the market, but we're definitely seeing that more. So we have 2 really great questions. One of them from actually mom, her mom. So she's not a realtor, buyer, seller,
She is
flipper.
licensed.
Yes, she is licensed, but she kind of does it all. How do you know if you're paying too much for a home? I mean, that's a really good question, especially in this market where people were buying, paying $25,000, $50,000 over and had that gap addendum. I'm not sure if I even know how to answer that question truthfully because
To me, it's relative.
it is relative.
What it's worth today, it's not worth tomorrow.
It's totally relative. It's relative to what people are willing to pay. But, that is also why we have an appraisal. I personally
Right, but they're doing that gap addendum, right, where they're saying it doesn't matter. I want this house. I am willing to pay the difference from the list price to the higher price. Now, we're not seeing that as much as we were, 2-3 months ago. But then they're saying, I'm also going to add this gap addendum saying I will pay the difference. It might not have appraised. And Andrew, I don't know if you're seeing that here, but another lender locally told us recently, and I hate to put this out here, but the appraisers are becoming lazy. And I'm not saying who told me this, but an appraiser literally told a lender in town, I don't have to make that gap addendum price. All I have to do is make the executed price, and I don't have to worry about the or that the value that they said that they were going to pay the difference of. I'll go 25,000 over this price here. They don't have to make that because they say they're paying a gap addendum. They're paying 5, 10,
Basically, they see the
15,000.
gap addendum and
They get lazy and they don't care.
allegedly getting lazy and just stopping once they
Now,
get the
only one
contract
appraiser
price.
said that. Hopefully, appraisers aren't watching this and going, "Oh, what a good idea."
Now they're going, which listing is Kristen or Rebecca's? I'm going to
so-
underappraise that.
I mean, I guess my answer to that question would be how do you know if you're overpaying? Well, you're overpaying if you pay over appraised value. I mean,
Sure. Okay.
I mean, appraised value isn't one person's opinion of value, but it does use comparable sales. And so for me, I guess I would look at it in the sense of what are you willing to overpay?
There you go.
If you come in with a 10% appraisal gap, you'll pay 10% over. You're going in on a $400,000 house, you'll pay up to $440,000. Just understand the fact that a normal year of appreciation is 3 to 5%.
Right.
So you may be underwater on that home for 2 to 3 years before you make up that value.
Now, we just had a realtor say that at day of closing at walkthrough, the buyer who's paying $25,000 over said, "Never mind. I don't care about losing my escrow. I'm walking. I'm overpaying. I don't want to do this. I just want to go back to renting. It's not worth it. Inflation's coming, or inflation's here. The recession is coming. I don't want to be out of this money, this $25,000 difference that I'm paying." So, I guess if you have such a bad experience and such a bad feeling, that's when you're paying too much.
Yeah, I totally agree. And keep in mind, appraisal gap doesn't always have to be cash brought to closing.
Mm-hmm.
I was running numbers, had a house appraise. It was a $400,000 house that appraised for $360,000, $40,000 under the sale price. And what we were able to do, the buyer was putting 20% down on a $400,000. So the buyer was putting $80,000 down. Mm-hmm. We switched that transaction to basically like a 87, I believe, percent loan to value. They kept their cash to close the same. They have to have PMI now because they're not putting 20% down, but you can do what they call a financed single premium PMI. So you can buy out the total cost of the PMI and roll that into your loan. And so my buyer at closing, his monthly payment went up $18 and his cash to close stayed the same on a $40,000 low appraisal. So just because there's a $25,000 appraisal gap, don't think you have to bring that $25,000 to closing. Now, if you're putting the minimum amount down, 5%, well, we can't increase the loan amount, the loan to value anymore. But if you're already putting 20% down, there's a lot of ways to restructure that. But we're definitely seeing the same thing. Going back to your statement there, we're seeing buyers that are getting wary. And a lot of it is the news of what's come out and what we're seeing. We're definitely heading towards recession. And, honestly, kudos to the buyer in that situation. If they felt uncomfortable, good for them for sticking to their guns and not following through with something that they didn't want to do. It stinks for everyone involved in the transaction the day before closing. But kudos to them for following through on their gut. I mean,
except for the seller, they got to pocket that escrow and put it back on the market and probably sell for higher. 30 days later, 45 days later, it's, worth a little bit more.
But my counter to that, so kudos to them on one hand for sticking to their gut. My counter to that is you could buy that home today and lock in your rent payment for 30 years. Going back to renting, there's a high probability your rent is going to go up another 10 to 15% again next year, because these are no longer mom and pa owning two rental properties. Mm-hmm. Now the rental market is now being set by hedge funds because they are in the single family game on a mass scale. So if 7 homes down the street are all being rented out by a hedge fund and they're going to jack their prices up 15%, and I own a home on that same street, my rent's going to go up the same amount theirs went up. So the hedge funds are now going to direct, and everyone knows how greedy Wall Street is. They're a bunch of greedy people. And if they can squeeze more out of rents, they're going to. So buying a home today doesn't mean the 5.5% interest rate you get today, you're stuck with for 30 years. You can always refinance if rates drop. But choosing to continue to be a renter is choosing truly to pay someone else's payment. The interest rate of rent is 100%. So why are you balking at a 5.5% interest mortgage rate?
I think I know that. I love it. Yeah, that's true. But I love what you're saying. And I think she could have heard this. She did on a certain level, but her landlord was still that mom and pop, and her landlord was still offering the same amount. Now, granted, in a year, they might raise it, and then she might have to be back out, with different pricing on the rate side and on the price side. But now it's 25,000 higher or 40,000 higher, right? But there's no gap addendum difference. And maybe that will help her feel a little better. But the great explanation. We have one more. We are running out of time, but we do have one more question. And this is from agent Susan Hicks. How do agents shorten the time needed to process a loan so that they can make their offers competitive with cash offers? We still have a lot of cash offers locally. So
yes, very, very, very good question. Work with a lender that has speed, number one. There's so many lenders that are 45-day transactions. It's ridiculous. 30-day transaction is ridiculous. But also, like my team and I, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is we can do what we call a full upfront underwrite on the file. Right. So we can take a buyer before they find a home and we can get all of the buyer's conditions cleared. So when they go under contract, all we need is appraisal and title to close. Now, we're so confident at the Epic Mortgage team in our upfront underwriting that we will actually prepare an addendum to their offer. If we have a fully underwritten file that's cleared, all buyer conditions cleared, we will provide an addendum to the agent they can submit with their offer that says, on the closing date, if the lender fails to close this transaction on the date on the contract, Fairway Mortgage, my company, will offer $10,000 to the seller, or Fairway will come in and buy the home on the closing day cash for the appraised value, lower of appraised value or purchase price. That's how confident we are in our upfront approvals. We're easily pulling off 10-day closings on this because all buyers' conditions are cleared. All we need is title and appraisal to go to the closing table.
All right.
Incredible.
Well, there you go. It's about the lender and the company that backs them up, right? The loan originator and the speed, agility, knowledge of what is definitely what you have, Andrew. So, Susan, if you get with these lenders who know what they're doing, like Andrew, then you don't have to worry so much. But no, that's a great program that you all have, and good to hear. Glad you have it on here. We've got a lot of people saying thanks for the information. Thank you so much for explaining it. You did it in layman's terms.
I'll drop some of the charts I talked about down in the comments below.
Yeah.
Perfect. And all of your contact information.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I think we will have it up here in a second, but in order to get in touch with Andrew, we've got his number 904-500-EPIC, and then andrew.cady at C-A-D-Y, not K-D, but K-D, C-A-D-Y, like, Cade with a Y. No, andrew.cady at fairwaymc. Did I see that? Yep, .com.
Yes, fairwaymc.com.
That will all be on our page as well, but any of you realtors watching this, any of you buyers watching this, he's a great lender to work with. He knows a lot of stuff, as you can see. We've had you on twice now. You're always welcome.
We're going to have him on again because the 30 minutes went too fast.
I know. It always goes fast with people who know a lot. We've appreciated
you. We didn't even get to monkeypox yet.
I know, right? We have so much to talk about, but it has been amazing, Andrew. We want you back on as soon as you can, so thank you so much. Looking dapper as well with the American flag behind you. Great job.
I love it.
Always.
Thanks, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
All right. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
We appreciate it.
And if you have a property that you don't want to sell and you want us to increase your rents by 15% a month, you know who to call. It's K&R Property Management. Sometimes we can do it higher. It just depends on what you've been running it for. Anyways, call me at 352-213-6410 and we'll get you an accurate market analysis on what you can get for your rental.
All right. And if you're looking to get into real estate or join a team, a successful, knowledgeable team that has things like the insurance events that we had. Thank you, Carrie Ward, for doing that this Thursday. We had a great insurance event. We will actually post that online soon so that everyone can see it. All of you that missed it can see all the important information. But again, going back to if you want to get into real estate, want to change where you are, join your team. If you're moving to Gainesville or Tampa and again, want to get into a great company, please give us a call, 352-559-8820, or email join@buysellrebell.com.
And if you can't get enough of Kristen and Rebecca and the entire Rabell Realty Group crew, you can check us out online at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Google My Business.
Yay. Like and subscribe. All right. And did you know we have a blog? We do. And we tend to blog about what we talk about. So we'll have something up here after Andrew, Katie, also after the insurance event. So watch us at buysellrebell.com/blog, and you'll see all the great information we have.
You can also sign up on our blog for weekly newsletters, which Tabitha puts out. Also, if you enjoyed today's podcast and you're thinking that you can do it better and you want your own podcast, please feel free to reach out to the Fiesta Media at 352-327-5080. We want to thank them for putting on this podcast and all the others.
And there it was. Yep, the insurance and ice cream informational was last week, but again, it will be on our on YouTube. Yes, we're going to place it on YouTube. We're going to get a nice video of that. Thank you, Carrie Ward again, and Mark Spivak. And next week we will be here for Memorial Day, so join us, Rabell Realty Podcast at 2 on the 31st. So thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next week.